Up next, Authentically Detroit welcomes Molly Sweeney, co-founder and executive director of 482Forward, to discuss their work encouraging Detroiters to become fully engaged participants in the efforts to change our city for the better. But first, this week's hot takes from Authentically Detroit and the Michigan Chronicle. Orlando's farewell to Authentically Detroit, and James Tate selected as Detroit City Council president. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Have you ever dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Authentically Detroit Podcast Network is here to make those dreams come true. Formerly known as the Deep Network and located inside the Stoudemire, the Authentically Detroit Podcast Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your idea off of the ground. Just visit authenticallydet.com and send a request through the contact page.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from Detroit's East Side at the Stoudemire inside of the East Side Community Network headquarters. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. And you heard that right. Today is my final day co-hosting Authentically Detroit. And to send me off, we're going to take a look down memory lane and our evolution since starting this platform in 2019. We're also honored to have the co-founder and executive director of 482Forward, Molly Sweeney, in the building to discuss how Detroiters can work together to build a brighter future. Molly, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you.
Is this your first time with us?
It's my first time.
I was thinking during the intro, I'm like, have we had Molly on before? That is a grave miscarriage of justice on our part.
Now we
offer our sincerest apology.
We have had 482Forward on here.
Yeah.
Just not Molly.
Yeah. Monty's been on here, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm Imani and then
Jamila?
Jamila's
been
on.
right?
Jamila has not, but I'm trying to think of the lady who works for you who came on. I think maybe she came to the Black Detroit Democracy podcast. Arlisa.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's better than me.
No. Nobody's better than you. We're really excited. We are really excited to have you because you're the visionary. You're the person who has been doing this for going on 12 years.
I know.
Wow.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
How you feeling? How's the day finding you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You're feeling old?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Does this work age you?
Yes.
Do you feel like it ages you?
Do you think it ages you?
I feel like in a way that people can't see. You know what I'm saying? You know, I don't feel or see age on my body, but I feel it. Yeah, you look very young
Thank
too.
You. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
it in
age
my soul.
in my knees.
Donna's like, I got real physical pain.
I got
here.
real
No, I do.
ailment.
Mostly, I think I just get a little more cynical about humanity. Which
Well,
makes me
that
feel
too. Me too. Yeah. I
I
mean,
know,
it's
but also
been one
cynical.
It
heck of a
doesn't make
weekend,
me
right?
cynical. It makes me radical. And I think
that's
that
probably right.
It's like aging radicalizes you because you go in one of two directions, right? You either become more conservative or you become more radical.
I love that.
I don't
I'm
think
definitely
people
more
stay the
radical.
same. And I'm more radical year after year after year. And
Same.
so everything that
'Cause you
happened
lived
this
through all of it.
weekend, I'm thinking to myself, Trump's mistake is not hiding his hand. The U.S. does this shit all of the time, but we hide our hands. This idiot is out here bragging. We captured him. Like, this is not how we do things,
For the
sir.
oil.
And it
Parading him
scares
around
people.
New York.
And we don't say it's for the oil. When we went and we toppled Saddam Hussein, we didn't say, hey, this is for the oil. You don't tell people that. You say, I'm doing this for human rights excuses.
For democracy.
He has
No, but we want the companies to invest in Venezuela for the oil.
But it's always been that, right? when I was in undergrad, when I was young, I was taking a foreign policy class at Wayne State and staying with my aunt, who's Guatemalan. And this is during the time that my parents are getting divorced. And so I'm talking all this foreign policy stuff. And she says, and I don't want to imitate her voice, but she has always had a very strong accent. Read this. And so I read the book, Bitter Fruits, how the U.S. government took, created revolution or deposed the president of Guatemala. Mm-hmm. She was a child then. She graduated at the top of her high school. So she was an academic superstar, brilliant lady. And she was in a parade and met the president. And the next year he was gone. And all during my childhood, she and my uncle would bring people from Guatemala to stay with them, helping to, bring them into the United States and protect them from wars that continued for decades after that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if you know Imirene Mendoza. She's an attorney in Southwest Detroit. That's where I met Imirene, her mother, and her brother Rodolfo. They stayed with my aunt and uncle. And that was always something that I grew up with and admired. My grandmother was a social activist. When I was in college, she told us she was going to Mexico, came back, and we said, how was Mexico? She said, I wasn't in Mexico. I was in Nicaragua observing the elections. I just told you I was going to Mexico so you wouldn't
Not
worry.
To freak you out.
Right. And so, all of those things I've been aware of. Mm-hmm. And then you read more. You read Gangsters of Capitalism and, learn about the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt Corollary and the Truman Doctrine and, all of that. But to see this idiot get up there and just claim this is
blatant.
Educational.
This is exactly who we are.
It's educational. And I think in some ways, not hiding your hand and doing it, I'm not celebrating what he did. I think it's horrendous. But don't hide your hand.
No, it's exactly what he wants to do. It's the truth. It's
why were we in Vietnam? Why were we in Korea? We weren't in Vietnam and Korea because we cared about...
Why have we ever been in Central America?
Ever. Always.
Not democracy.
And why are people... But the other thing is, when you close the loop, why are people coming here? Because we destroyed the places that they lived. We took all of the arable land and controlled it so that they can't grow their own crops. We've, created Panama was a creation.
The food
of
shortage
the US
in Venezuela
Marines.
is very underreported right now, 100%. But there's a massive food shortage. 90% of the residents there are living in poverty.
And
it's not a pretty picture.
And the embargo that we put on there,
our
foreign policy, not Trump's foreign policy before there, contributed to that. Yeah. Our U.S. foreign policy can be so cruel and we can be so naive. What I'm hoping is that this is a wake-up call for those of us who are looking at the news to say, stop. To say we want something different. We want a different world. One of my frustrations over the past...
A different world than where you come from. Go ahead. Sorry.
that's been rebooted. I can't wait. But, one of the things that frustrates me is that we have a way of looking at American foreign policy through such narrow lens. We don't really understand what's happening. People are so angry about what's happening in Gaza that there are some people who will blame Israel for everything or AIPAC for everything that's happening anywhere in the world. And it's like, y'all know Israel hasn't been around as long as
U.S.
the U.S.
foreign policy.
Israel, to me, is a colonial outpost of the United States. There's a reason that the United States gives that money. It's not to be nice.
And regardless of party.
Regardless of party. And that's because there is a geopolitical reason. There's an economic reason for Israel being there. And you can be a Nazi in the U.S. government and support Israel because of that geopolitical reason.
100%.
And when we understand that, then we don't blame AIPAC and Israel for everything that's going wrong. I'm not supporting AIPAC.
The U.S. government.
But it's our government. And so somebody posted on my page, when I posted something about this, Israel is behind all of this. And I thought, now this is how... That is anti-Semitism, right?
And misinformation.
But I don't even want to say it's anti-Semitism because Semitism has so many meanings. That's hatred for Jewish people. To blame Jewish people for all negative world affairs. Hopefully people are opening their eyes and understanding that genocide doesn't happen in one part of the world one time to only these people, but it's the practice of exploitation, oppression, and governments that have too much power and are run by evil people is something that we see in places that we don't know. Mm-hmm. And so I really take this moment and say, raise your consciousness.
Yeah.
And then you know what to fight.
How was your holiday? It's 2026.
You know.
How was your holiday?
It was great.
Yeah.
Hung out with my son. I read a book, a fiction book.
A fiction book you read for
First time
fun.
For fun.
Oh gosh, that's great. What did you read?
Like God of the Woods.
God of the Woods.
fine.
It was
It was
fine.
fine.
Okay, Donna, how are your holidays? You've been off.
I have.
What'd
I
you do?
finished a fiction book.
You wrote it.
I wrote it.
Pew pew pew. Announcement.
Coming out
Okay,
in
called 40
2026.
Acres and Future D.
40 Acres and Future D.
When's it coming out?
I don't know. Somebody has to publish it first. I think
Calling
it's
all
pretty good.
publishers.
Calling all publishers. Orlando's going to hook
New
me up
York
with somebody.
Times.
482Forward Publishing.
I sent it to some people, and
Organizing.
Orlando said he was going to read it,
Yeah.
and then he told me about the stack of books he has to read, and I figured he does not have time to read this. But
should jump to the
I
top.
love reading, but I have to read for work. I have to do all these interviews, and so I
you have
got to
to
read
read
these
the
books.
books
Yeah, I
before you interview
never
someone.
cheat. Yeah, I read the book cover
There's
to
no
cover.
compromise.
and
No
I would
AI.
never want to stand in the way of you doing your job. Which is
You can
why
still
you're
send me
leaving
the book.
You're leaving her. You're
Yes,
not even
I
reading
know,
her
right?
book. At least you could read her
yes,
book.
thank you, Molly.
I never said I
This is the
couldn't.
trade-off.
How many pages though?
I never said I couldn't read her book.
Probably, I don't know.
She's just making excuses for
Somewhere
you.
like around 375, I think.
That's not bad.
Oh yes, 375.
We can read it
pages.
together.
I'll send it to you.
Lunch breaks at Tech Town.
Oh, see,
That'll
there you
be
go.
fun.
But no, I'm too scared to.
We could do a Donna
I've been
book
working
club.
on this. I've been working on this book for 7 years. And
Seven.
How have you-
Seven is a
what?
perfect number.
Yes.
Give us-
Biblically and theologically, 7 is the number of completion.
Wow, give us a
Look at you.
teaser.
Okay, the teaser is. It starts in 1967 at the site of the rebellion. This
At
family,
the congregation.
this family is in Idlewild, sitting out the rebellion in Idlewild, Michigan, and that's actually what my family did in 1967.
Wow.
And this family that lives in the Boston Edison neighborhood goes there. The dad's a doctor, the mom is a housewife, and but she became a teacher. Now the interesting thing about this is that's actually my grandfather was a doctor, my grandmother was a teacher, but these aren't them. But it starts with them and their views on what happened, and they're really disconnected from why this is happening. And they have a son. And so his journey, and then he meets up with a friend, and his friend comes from a completely different background. His father came up here as a sharecropper, went to war, came here, brought his wife, bought a house in Black Bottom, lost the house to, Negro removal, ended up living in the Virginia Park area. He was working at a plant, a foundry, and he decided, I'm not doing this anymore. I came here. I can't have anything of my own. So he starts living in the underground economy, the street life. And so he becomes a criminal. And his son, Moses, and this person, they become best friends. And his wife, they become best friends. And so it follows everything from there, and it ends in around
So it's
2007.
Fiction.
It's fiction, but it's fiction that interweaves
Historical.
a lot of Detroit's
Detroit
history.
history.
So the idea is, if you want people to drink medicine, put it in orange juice. If you want people to learn our history, I'm putting it in a novel form,
a little
and
fiction.
hopefully you'll love it. Because what I tried to do is I tried to humanize every character. So the criminal, you can understand how he became that way. All the worst people, all the best people, you know how they became that way, because we all have our, every criminal has an origin story. Every great person has an origin story. What are our origins?
What happened to you?
What became of Black Detroit? What's that?
Columbia University.
What'd they
House
do?
Publishing House.
That's true.
She's a professor at
That's-
Columbia.
yeah.
Lecture. They won't. Yeah, but I'll send
I like that
something
you're
to them.
I'm thinking about
I
as-
appreciate that,
Penguin.
and maybe I can talk to some folks there. But anyway, the
Yeah, keep going.
idea is I just want people to see us flaws and
I
all.
wanna read this.
And so it's the first. It's going to be a trilogy. This book ends right when Detroit starts ramping up predatory lending. So
Okay.
from 1967 to predatory lending.
Same family. Or same
Lots
characters.
of same characters. Lots of there's about 8 characters that we are following in here. 8 or 9
So if I get
backstories.
you a book deal, do I get a percentage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to be my agent? I need an agent. No, but
Agent.
anyway, so
What does that mean?
there's such a sense of completion and fulfillment to be able to say, I'm done. I'm not
What
really
did you do?
amazing.
So let me ask you this. When you typed the last word and you knew you were done, what did you do?
Yeah. What was the celebration?
What was the celebration? What was the celebratory moment? Or,
We're having it now.
Okay.
Oh, we're doing it right now.
I finished last night.
Oh, you finished last night?
Last night.
Did you have no
And
glass
I
of
sent
wine,
it-
nothing?
You just
I sent it to a couple people who agreed to proofread them. I sent it to. It's very scary to send out something like that. Remember how scary?
It's a part of
Authentically-
you. Yes.
It's incredible.
It's a part of you. Yes.
It's like, oh my goodness, somebody's going to read this and they won't like that.
Yeah.
And some people could read it, might be offended by some characterizations. And I'll give an example of one. I don't talk about Jack and Jill. I talk about Hansel and Gretel.
The Hansel and Gretel organization.
The Hansel and Gretel Society for Children, and how these parents came together
That's fiction.
to keep their children away from temptation and the witch.
So you need
they kept them
that
on
disclaimer. Any this is complete fiction.
Yeah.
Any coincidences as it relates to real life is completely
there's
coincidental.
No way anybody's
People are going to interpret it what they interpret.
and they will know it's Jack and Jill. It's not accidental. I was thinking
Donna's
about
unfinished
Except a white person
business.
that reads and they're
no,
like,
it's
okay,
not.
Hansel
You
and
know what?
Gretel.
I'm trying to show the different parts of the city. The
Yeah.
city has all of these different
It's a
parts.
hierarchy in this
And
city.
there's
for
some
sure.
class
hierarchy, but
differences.
also, and I don't want to spend too much time talking because we have to talk about
Oh,
you.
no,
but
it's okay.
the last
This
thing I
is
want to
fun.
say is, growing up, my grandfather was a doctor. He graduated from Indiana University. Go Indiana, go.
That was so
Hoosiers.
cool. I saw you post. Yes. So cool.
Grandfather
Sheesh.
became a doctor. He graduated from Indiana University in 1926, I think.
Wow.
And moved to Detroit. My dad went to U of M. He's a doctor. And so for so long, I felt this sense of guilt, like for my privilege, right? Because I grew up in a household that had at least economic privilege, all the crazy stuff, because that
Doesn't
goes
exempt
everywhere.
you. Money doesn't exempt you from the other
You can't
trauma.
you can't buy sane, but he was a doctor, and so that's part of who I am. And I walked around with guilt, and then one day, I understood how they tried to protect us by forcing us to speak a certain way, and all of the norms that go along with being part of this group. I understood the sacrifices that they made, that you don't get to be the first without scars. If you're in front of the line and you're dealing in a racist society, you walk away in some ways more scarred than many other
can't
people
imagine.
without the community behind you because you're an outlier. And so I started having compassion.
Unintended.
For,
LOL.
Yeah.
anyway,
But I can't imagine being a black doctor in 1926.
And, rest his soul, but also, I didn't realize this. Happy Founders Day to the Kappas. Her grandfather was a Kappa.
he was a Kappa, and he was in one of the first lines, so he's in the
Get
Kappa history
outta
books.
here.
He's one
This
of
is amazing.
You
Oh, yeah, I'm looking it up. Look, that's her granddaddy.
yeah. So
I know, right? Dr. Givens.
Donovan Heston Givens. So
What a name.
right. So my name, Donna Givens, comes from him. Heston was his mother's maiden name. Anyway, so for me, owning them, owning the people, owning this past, not throwing it away, not criticizing it, because when you do certain things, but then also not criticizing all of the other people who are different. We have this tendency to think of these are the good people and these are the bad people. And we're all striving for the same thing through the different seats that we occupy. And the question is, do we ever hold ourselves accountable or realize when we start straying in the wrong lane? And so hopefully as you read this, you can see, if you read my book, you can see that people are wanting to be good and sometimes doing really crappy things. And that's the way life is. We have...
Sounds human.
It's and then when people make mistakes, we have a tendency to just discredit everything about them.
Right.
You say
Write 'em
one
off.
wrong thing and you are just no longer any good.
A mistake is a mistake.
Yeah, it's and I don't call it cancel culture because Black folks have been canceled when we make mistakes since forever. A Black person can be the most famous person in the world and say something like, make a comment that reeks of, anti-Jewish, other kinds of racism, sexism, and it's like, okay, now this person can no longer be allowed anywhere. I'm not defending him because he doesn't need a defense. But when you look at Louis Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan is treated like the worst of the worst of the worst. You can't bring him into public view. You can't say anything good about him. And yet you have full-blown Nazis wearing Nazi regalia given freedom of speech. So we don't necessarily...
Double standards.
I'll use this example to what you're saying. There's this, Black folks got all kinds of expressions, and Jamie Foxx ended up saying something online to encourage somebody who's like, well, they hated Jesus, they gonna hate you. And
slammed.
Yes.
And this is after this man miraculously survived whatever he was going through, because everybody thought he was brain dead. He's alive. He speaks, and he says the same thing every Black person I know says.
And it is
if they
not.
did that to Jesus, what would they do to you? And they're not talking about Jewish people. They're talking about if your friends selling you out. It is literally your friends sell you out. If your friends do this to you, what will...
It was crazy.
It was in the interpretation. And then you have to... I think there was somebody, I can't remember who the star was, said something about paragliding right after what happened in Gaza. Oh my God. When the people, the massacre, after the massacre, and I guess they were paragliding in there, and she said something about paragliding, Black woman, and they're canceling her for saying those words. And so to me, racism in America is really weird, because you have to always prove you're one of the good ones. I'm a good one. And, I think it's unconscious. You don't think of this. I'm one of the good ones. I'm one of the good ones. In order to just
that's deep.
Be relevant, in order to be good, you have to be one of the good ones. And it's a burden we carry that we don't talk about.
Talk about it.
And that's the reason why, to some extent, some people are so unwilling to criticize people who are objectively horrible. Like R. Kelly has defenders. Some people will never stop, because the reality is they feel like I'm always standing on the edge of being thrown away myself.
Yeah.
And in a world that throws us away, I'm not going to let you throw away any of us. Now, I don't agree with that. Nicki Minaj can go join some other group, right? We're not down. I'm not down with her, but I get the instinct to protect. Well, she did, but I get the instinct to protect our own.
That's a really, really salient point, and there are people popping up in my brain as you say that, because I'm like, I don't understand, right?
It's like
but when you say that there's this adjacency or this feeling, this palpable feeling of you also being thrown away by society because of whatever you're standing on the socioeconomic register, your family history, whatever, it prompts you to defend other folks on the margins, like you said, who are just objectively horrible, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting insight, for real. Like I think I'm now beginning to understand like certain people in my life, because I'm like, I cannot understand why.
I get it. Like, that forgiveness is racist in its public eye. And so I understand wanting to protect every other person.
Yeah,
and like, if you step into it could be me in a day.
Yeah.
It's like,
but then then you actually don't.
Yeah.
You see a young white man and you presume he's good until he shows you evidence that he's bad. You see a young Black man and you presume he might be dangerous until he shows you that he's not. The presumption of innocence, the presumption of integrity, of good character, all of those things don't weigh in. The presumption that we have healthy families and we love our children, the presumption that Detroiters care about their kids in schools and that parents love their kids. School's not organized in Detroit. And this is such a good prelude to get, and we'll talk about this, with the expectation that parents want their children to excel and that children want to do well. It's almost like we have to punish you and berate you into excellence. And that's the opposite of human nature. Human beings want to be successful, but racism has a way of treating certain classes of people as though they want different things. And so if I say anything, and this is the last thing I'll say, this book will hopefully be a love letter to Detroit that is both beautiful and terrible and wonderful and crazy and everything
just
in between.
Like Detroit.
Just like Detroit.
Just like
book
Detroit.
club.
Yeah, just like
Let's
Detroit.
have one.
Because we are in relationship. Candace Fortman always says we are in relationship with this city. And it has the ability to bring us joy, bring us great grief, frustrate us. I mean, we are in this long-standing, sometimes domestically abusive relationship with the city of Detroit. And so it really is all of those things. Molly, we're happy you're here. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year. Today is my last recording for Authentically Detroit.
I've been trying to delay this conversation.
And I've been letting her because the decision, coming to this decision was not an easy one, nor am I like joyously skipping out of here. But the time has come. I'll speak to folks who have created something before. When you get an opportunity to create something that you're passionate about with a colleague who has turned into a dear friend, and that thing that you created, you love and you nurture it, and it is so important to you. And one day you look up and the thing you created is just as important to a city, to residents, to philanthropic professionals, to folks in city government, to folks who are passionate about Detroit and may be somewhere across the world, but gets to listen in to hear about what's going on. When you create something and it becomes valuable beyond what you could imagine, it's the best feeling ever. And to have done that alongside, call her a giant, and one of my greatest teachers, Donna Davidson, has been such a surreal, fun, challenging privilege. There's a scripture that says, to everything there is a time and a season. And my season in Authentically Detroit is coming to an end. I want to thank everybody who has been a part of this journey, from Jonathan Galloway and Audio Wave Network to Terry Miner and Alante Steele, who did our photo shoot and our cover art, to Bridge Detroit for putting us on their website for 4 years, to WDET for housing us, to every partner, every guest, every fill-in host. I mean, we got a roster of folks who we call to come in, to everybody who helped make Authentically Detroit community, a community on the airwaves. I sincerely thank you all. This has been the highlight of one of the greatest highlights of my life. You know, even while working in community development, of course, I still had a broadcasting and journalistic proclivity, and having all of these conversations with Donna, and then us sitting one day and say, hey, we should daylight these conversations and we should do it on a podcast. Having that support in a community development capacity to help scratch this itch that I've always had toward telling stories, and interviewing folks and getting their stories out of them, is invaluable, right? Having a leader at first invest resources from her organization, because we didn't have any money, invest resources from an organization to create this thing, and look at what it has become. It is a part of the Detroit zeitgeist. You cannot talk about having conversations in, around, and about the city of Detroit, and our podcast doesn't come up. And so we know it. Y'all walk up to us. Y'all say hi. You know what I mean? You may not have seen me before. You hear the voice, and then you're like, oh my God, I know your voice. Thank y'all. It's been It's been an amazing ride.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we got to do it. I'm so glad we did it and are doing it.
Yeah. Just want to acknowledge a couple of other people. Connor Anderson at WDET.
Connor Anderson. Man, yeah.
Griffin. What's Griffin's last name?
Don't start me to lie.
I'll look it up. Jalen Fields, Sarah Johnson.
Yeah. Hutchins, Griff Hutchins.
I was like, at the tip of my tongue, Griff Hutchins. We're a team. We have to thank Carrie Frazier for stepping in.
Carrie.
We've done some live episodes. There's people
habitual partner.
who have been just in our corner, helping us make this work day after day. And, when I was out of town, when Orlando communicated to me that he, was stepping away, and that was not a good moment for me right at that moment, right? Mm-hmm. But Authentically Detroit is about authentic Detroit voices. And there's always got to be a lineup of voices ready to take the microphone, because I think what we have become is a place for people to speak their truth. Yeah. And I just really honor you, Orlando, because this never would have happened without you really just putting your journalistic skills into this. And, because I don't know anything about to run a show. I'm just like, let's just talk. And, you listen to podcasts and they just talk, and you don't want to listen anymore because there's no structure or whatever. And so you brought the journalism, the outstanding introductions that you give. You go on vacation. I always trip through those words. We're changing it, okay? Because I'm not doing that anymore. And your journalistic reach, and so your understanding of the process. And I've learned a lot from you, but I also learned to trust my own voice, because in this city for so long, me speaking got me in trouble. And so it's kind of easier not to speak out your feelings than to hold them in. And the first episode we recorded, you were like, this is as live. And I was like, no, it's not. Let's go back and edit it. And he was like, nope, we don't edit it. And I trusted you enough to let you do that. But I felt so scared, because I was sure I said something that would offend somebody somewhere, and I had no control over it. At least on Facebook, you can take it down. You can delete, you can go back and edit. But when it's out here, this is just you in your purest form. It never occurred to me that my voice would be not just accepted, but also respected and celebrated. It really didn't. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest surprise to me in my whole life. You heard my wedding vows. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I told my husband when we were getting married, for my entire life, I've always been too much. Too opinionated, too passionate, too talkative. And people have always wanted to tamp me down. And to marry somebody who loves me just as I am and celebrates those things other people rejected in me was the biggest surprise of my lifetime. I didn't think that I would find love in that way. But Orlando, as a friend and as a colleague, you've done the same thing. And that means everything to me. And so thank you.
Thank you.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being who you are and then going where you're going. Because, you're headed places. And so I'm really excited to say I knew you when, but I'm going to be there with you by your side. You're not getting rid of me. We're still going to do stuff together because we're friends and colleagues. Absolutely. And we respect each other.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the entire team. So we're going to have a celebration for Orlando.
What are you
going to come back? I don't know. I'll tell you. Stay tuned. We're going to announce a celebration.
She's authentically Donna all the time. Well, good celebration.
Yeah, we are going to celebrate Orlando. When Orlando left ECN in the year 2000, we were in the midst of a pandemic. There are no celebrations during the pandemic. We're just trying to stay alive, right? And then he was still with us, still has keys to the building, still here at least once a week. And so it never really felt like there was a departure. Then he was on the board, and he's still helping out with some stuff. But I think it's important to say, let's take this time to really acknowledge that this is a young man who grew up through here. Maggie told the most amazing story at the Eastside Extravaganza. Wow, I learned everything about you there. But this amazing young man who was kind of raised here, helped raise us, and now he's moved on, but not really moved on. He's just continuing his path.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you. We're going to take
I
a
love
quick
that.
break, and we're going to be back to talk about James Tate being selected as the Detroit City Council president.
Detroit 1 Million is a journalism project started by Sam Robinson that centers a generation of Michiganders growing up in a state without a city with 1 million people. Support the only independent reporter covering the 2025 Detroit mayoral race through the lens of young people. Good journalism costs. Visit Detroit1million.com to support Black independent reporting.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit. For Hot Takes, James Tate selected as Detroit City Council president. This is by Sam Robinson, the co-host of the Black Detroit Democracy podcast. Detroit City Council has a new leader after a vote in a special session Monday that illustrated the political factions between members of the body. Former Detroit City Council President Pro Tem James Tate of District 1 is now the president of the body after a 5-4 vote. District 3 Council member Scott Benson was the runner-up. Detroit Clerk Janice Winfrey presided over Detroit City Council's special session today as it began the new year without a City Council president. The president and President Pro Tem are selected to 4-year terms by vote among members of the body. That's what he's trying to say. City Council began selecting presidents by majority vote of the members in 2014. Council member at large Mary Waters expressed disappointment Monday inside the City Council's Irma Henderson Auditorium after she says she didn't hear back from colleagues other than Benson on her aspirations to run again for council president. She did in 2021, receiving a vote from District 2 Council member Angela Whitfield Calloway. James Tate and Scott Benson were the two candidates who received votes. Renata Miller, District 5, Benson. Gabriela Santiago Romero, District 6, went for Tate. Mary Waters at large went for Benson. Whitfield Calloway, District 2, went for Benson. Scott Benson went for Benson. He's in District 3. Letitia Johnson in District 4 went for Tate. James Tate in District 1 went for Tate. Comey Young, at large councilperson, went for Tate. And Denzel McCampbell in District 7 went for Tate. Shortly after the vote Monday, Comey Young II was elected as Detroit City Council President Pro Tem. Tate nominated Young to the position he held for the last 4 years. This is important. This is important who serves in these posts. Donna, what say you?
Oh, I'm really happy with the vote. I was, it's so exciting to have the coalition of the 3 council members, Gabriela, Denzel, and Letitia, working together because they are by far the most progressive members of the body.
Progressive
right?
caucus
And
on City Council.
We were saying this before we started today. I don't think we were on camera. I don't think the mics were on at that time. That as you get older, you either become more conservative or more radical. And as
the mics were on.
They were on.
They were
Okay,
on.
so we're saying this again. But my radical side is really excited because I believe that we need radical change in our community, and unfortunately, the runner-up for City Council president does not share those radical change beliefs.
Yeah.
James Tate doesn't either necessarily line up with all of those ideas. I worked in Brightmoor for a brief period of time, and I got to know him. He is a man of integrity, and I believe he is a person who wants to do the right thing.
He's about
and
it.
is somebody who will support causes that make sense to him. We were very fortunate to have Mary Sheffield in that space when she was on City Council because, there's some votes that really came down to the wire. And the only person who voted with her outside of the women on City Council was Coleman Young. Remember the vote on the property tax appeals process, and there's some other things. So I think that James Tate has big shoes to fill. We had somebody who could be trusted to carry out a more progressive agenda who is sharing City Council. On the other hand, City Council as a body is more progressive than it was. And so I think having a more progressive City Council with a mayor who herself has a more progressive agenda means that we're going to have real change in our city. I believe that to my bones. I would have been a little concerned if we had a member who was likely to try to stop some of the things that she wanted to do.
Molly, I'm really interested to hear your perspective on this.
On James, I mean, we've worked with James Tate in Brightmoor for a long time with our Brightmoor education team, and I think spot on. James operates with integrity. Every time we've disagreed, James is in his, most thoughtful way will come to community and tell him why he's not voting the way that community wants him to, and in a way that actually still honors the values and respect for community being a voice and a power broker. And so I'm excited. I think that he'll come to the table, and having Denzel and Gabby both aligned with Working Families Party and trying to bring a progressive agenda that prioritizes community over corporations. I mean, I think James is going to I think he's uniquely positioned to be honest and to navigate the different powers in Detroit. It's not going to be easy for him. I mean, there's a whole faction in this city that's very nervous to have Duggan be gone. That's going to pressure Mary and City Council to continue corporate buyouts, to continue to have corporate power, subsidies, all those things, right? Then how do we actually have a mayor and City Council that?
And Mayor Sheffield has not said that she would do away with corporate.
And she won't.
No,
I think we have to be really honest.
That, guys.
We have to center our political expectations around political realities. Keep this in mind. This governor of Michigan can, at will, declare Detroit has an emergency and take over the city of Detroit's finances and appoint a new emergency manager. We know now that our freedom is not absolute to do what we will. If you look at cities like Jackson, Mississippi, that tried to go against the grain, you see what happens when you go too far. But the other thing is that we live in a capitalist state inside of a capitalist nation.
Yeah.
And our economy is based on certain irrefutable things. Like, you may want to just go against the grain, but our budget depends on bond financing.
Yeah. It depends on DT and Blue Cross Blue Shield and Gilbert being happier.
Well, but
at that point.
And the bond rating agencies.
Yeah.
Bond rating agencies ultimately have to believe that what you do makes sense.
Yeah, that's right.
The bond rating agencies don't share my priorities. And so being able to balance those interests.
Yeah.
Every mayor has had to do that. Coleman Young people don't remember that Coleman Young had to balance those interests too, right?
Yeah.
And he was accused of supporting downtown at the expense of neighborhoods because you're always going to have some of it. Now, it's a lot more extreme right now. But I think that we should right-size our expectations, prioritize our demands, and try to be realistic in how we interface with this mayor, understanding that sometimes we're going to have to disagree.
This mayor and council.
And
100%.
city council.
It's a new day in Detroit.
It is
literally.
a new day, but we have to let that new day play out because it's not going to all happen. Now, today we got the RX Kids.
The RX Kids announcement. Yeah.
Which is huge. Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be many more to come.
The biggest cities thus far to join.
We are still in the midst of a transition process. The surveying has not even started. A lot of the community meetings haven't started. But this is a mayor who's going to be in the community talking to Detroiters about what they want. And I think, ideally, she will have the leverage she needs to actually negotiate with City Council.
Yeah.
And she knows that process.
And she knows that process. So it's not just going to be my word against yours, but this is what the community feels,
We will be right back with Molly Sweeney to talk about her work at 482Forward. Keep it locked. To Authentically Detroit, 482Forward grew out of trial by fire. Many of the founding organizations had previous relationships and shared work in Detroit, but came together for a special purpose to create the 482Forward network. Molly Sweeney and Jamila Martin, founding co-directors, convened a roundtable of community-based partners at Excellent Schools Detroit who were interested in engaging in education organizing in their neighborhoods. When ESD no longer wanted to support organizing, the partners felt so strongly about the work they had built together that they stood together to form an independent network and raise the necessary funding. The founding directors, staff, and leaders had a vision of leveraging social service communities toward organizing that would marry rather than place at odds immediate program work with long-term system change work. Everything about 482Forward was formed collectively. Subcommittees learned about things like structure, membership, and conferences from other organizations and brought back recommendations that were adopted by the whole body. In particular, 482Forward representatives visited Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and had a number of learning conversations with them and Together Colorado. Together, they are creating a Detroit where every student graduates ready to become fully engaged participants in the world, equipped with the character and the capacity to negotiate their environment and change it for the better. Molly Sweeney, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks for having me.
How does it feel to have helped to build something this substantial?
We just talked about a baby,
Yeah,
right?
It's a baby. Yeah.
You and
it's
Jamila.
12 years old. Yeah. I mean, and I will say that's on our website, isn't it? Really, the moment I think Jamila and I knew with partners that we wanted to build something around organizing and education was in Southwest before we went to Excellent Schools Detroit. When we filled an auditorium with the Harriet Tubman Center, we were organizing with parents in Southwest Detroit. We filled an auditorium with 1,000 parents because every organizer in the world at that point would say to you, you get 1,000 people in a room with a politician, you can get whatever you want. Put them in a room on the stage, and we had Bob Bob was on stage, and we had 10 policy changes we asked him to make in front of 1,000 parents, and he said yes to everyone. The next week he left. And it was this realization that power in the context of Detroit, in the context of our country and the state with emergency management was different. That just voting was not an electoral power, was not enough to transform our schools. And at the time, right, we had the emergency manager, we had just had the EAA, and then we had the influx of charter schools. So no school in the city was run by Detroiters. So it was this deep conversation with community partners of okay, so you guys have all these service relationships. How are you leveraging them to really build power? Because we're not going to get rid of an emergency manager. They just, created a new law when we voted it out. We have to build real power. And that was the moment, I think, that we said is what does power look like in this context? Which I think, honestly, the U.S. is experiencing right now, right? What is it? I think Detroit, as a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It's what power do we have when big money and corporations really control everything?
Yeah.
And how do we on the ground, and Detroit education being one of the first experiments in most recent history, right? We have the DeVos's, the Heritage Foundation.
The Skillman Foundation.
The Skillman Foundation, all of it, right? They were complicit. Skillman was complicit in the whole thing. And
Detroit Free Press.
All of it. And
The papers, the foundation.
It was a coordinated effort to, in their mind, the way to improve education was to dismantle unions because unions were the boogeyman. And if we get rid of teacher unions, we can have good education. I think
DeVos's Heritage Foundation trying to run the ballot initiative multiple times in the state.
But what really gets me about the school reform is that school reform was a marriage between people on the far right and on the left, really wanting the same thing and really believing in the bad boogeyman being Detroit teacher unions. And DFT was flawed, is flawed. Public unions can be very flawed because they protect the worker. But the reality is, at that time, you didn't have the teacher shortage that you have today.
Yeah.
At that time, you didn't have many of the problems that you have today. As it turns out, holding teachers accountable just drove them out of the workforce. Teacher accountability was not something that promoted teacher morale. And people with low morale don't perform as well on the job as people with high morale. And so there were a lot of unintended consequences. One of the worst, and it doesn't get talked about enough, one of the worst was the dismantling of the pension system by privatizing all of that education. We spend so much on education now, and they brag about we spend more on education than any time in our history. That's because we're spending $1 billion every year propping up a pension fund that would otherwise collapse because you have more people drawing pensions than contributing to pensions.
Yep.
It's a ridiculous problem to have. somebody with actuarial table should have been in the conversation, but
Someone with financial expertise. Yeah.
but you came into this. You entered into this when all of those people were so intent on dismantling that they weren't really looking at the after effects of dismantling. It's like shock and awe in Iraq, right? We're going to come in here and we're going to do this, and it's like now you have destroyed the state. What do you have in its wake?
Yeah.
So, what is I know because I'm on the board of 482Forward and I'm a big fan, have been for many years. But what are some of the things that you accomplished? During those years.
I mean, I think one of the most impactful campaigns was our first campaign we ran, which was to help push the legislature to get the school board back. I think that experience, though, also showed us, so pushing legislation, trying to get a Republican legislature and governor to pass a bill to bail out Detroit public schools, that, getting the school board back was one outcome. The other was, in the middle of the night, the DeVosses paid $1.7 million to the legislature to add draconian things into that bill, which was, if you're in the bottom 5% for test scores in the state for 3 years, you had to close, which then the next year triggered multiple, I think 35 schools across the state, 20 some in Detroit that were going to close. So then we built an infrastructure, which is actually I'm really proud of, the Michigan Education Justice Coalition, which is a statewide infrastructure like 482Forward, because we realized, oh, hey, we're not going to win anything as Detroit unless we build statewide power. And so we had to help build out organizing infrastructure across the state, which was not one of our intended, it was like, I don't want babies across the state, but now we have we have organizations across the state because we need to have power because, the rural groups in the UP actually are under the same infrastructure, and we need to have the power of their voices pushing their legislators because they're impacted too when things are horrible. So I would say, one, getting the school board back, but two, the unintended consequences from DeVos helping us birth out this larger statewide network that is dedicated to building muscle and power, people power to fight the corporate infrastructure, the 1% infrastructure that's trying to control public education in the state. An experiment here because they're taking it everywhere else. And then I would say the literacy lawsuit has been huge.
Yeah.
But I think the other
90 million?
90 million.
One of the things that
96 million?
Something like that.
I would say my most proud though is that there's a bunch of young people and parents that have come through this.
Yes.
Through our programming who was like understanding of power and politics.
Yes.
Is incredible. I mean, I met with one of our students who came from one of the charter schools on Sunday. She's a Yemeni woman. She's a first Marshall scholar who's a Yemeni woman from Southwest Detroit. And she said, and I mean, I was like pretty dumbfounded too. She said, I wouldn't be where I am unless at 13, you all wouldn't have actually given me an understanding of power. Because I navigated high school, I navigated college, understanding power in a new way. And she wants to move back here and run for office.
Good.
That's amazing. I mean, one of the most exciting things that you've done, and those are all amazing. Those are all amazing. And it reminds people that, I always go back to change what you can.
Yeah.
You can't change everything, change what you can. And sometimes what you can do is you can change people's minds. Sometimes what you can do is you can educate people and help them access the power that God gave them, right? And sometimes what you can do is actually have targets, very specific targets. And we're going to talk about one of those in a minute.
Ooh.
Before we get to that target, though, I want to talk about what happened during COVID, because that was some real community organizing at a time when everybody's sheltering in place. Talk about what you did and the ginormous impact of your work during COVID-19.
Tell us.
Which part? I mean, we did a few things.
Yeah.
One, our students led some campaigns around policing in the schools and actually did a lot of work to think about and push the legislature to pass, it was $210 million towards counselors, not cops, which was all birthed out of like virtual meetings with young people around the pandemic. But then the other thing we did, which was very interesting, and talk about like a foray into comms, is we launched a like online Facebook Live with PBS and did these weekly, weekly, I don't know what they call it, shows.
Yes.
Shows with PBS. And
I remember
and it was great.
I did
Our
a couple
first
of
one,
them.
we had 10,000 people
That's what I was
that
gonna
crashed
say.
the Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was this really interesting way
Yeah.
of like community partners. Honestly, we were talking to the city and the city wasn't doing stuff. And we all got really frustrated that we weren't getting good information around what families should do. And so I don't know how we even got connected to PBS, but they were like, let's try it. And then they didn't understand Zoom. So it was my Zoom, which is wild.
Yeah. Detroit PBS could be a little analog sometimes.
I mean, they're
to
the
this.
best.
I love them. Shout out to Marty.
Shout out all of
Shout out to
them.
Zozette, everybody at Detroit PBS. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it was transformational.
Yeah.
in
It
so
was.
And
many
it was
ways.
this relationship builder, and it became this place where we actually did political updates, and we kept people abreast on like the best. We met so many doctors and so many folks across the state that we're trying to bring real information to Detroiters in ways that people could hear it.
And, you know, before I forget to mention, Molly and 482Forward, that's our 2025 Truth to Power Award. This
We were
was
so proud.
really speaking truth to power. There's
Y'all look
nobody
great,
more
too.
deserving of
did.
that. Yeah, that was great. But now you're focused on something that gets me really excited
Yeah.
just thinking, and I know it's hard. Can you talk about it?
Let me
Yeah.
say, I see it. I see how hard it is because Molly and I are neighbors, and with 482Forward, the
old.
Outlier are neighbors in Tech Town. And so I see you. I see
Yeah.
you working. I see you trying to collect signatures, and yes.
I mean, talk about, I feel old, but you're right. I think this campaign has radicalized me in ways that are important. So we're trying. So, you know, since we've started, Detroit Public Schools has been underfunded, right? That's just, we know it. Starving public institution of resources to close it. And the state, it's not just Detroit, it's public education across the state. So we have a $4.5 billion gap. And since we've started, we're like, hey, y'all, who's going to, you know, revenue campaign? Because we've tried a bunch of policy stuff. And at the end of the policy, everyone's always like, but we have money for it? You want more counselors? You have money for it? And so in 2020, we actually tried to run a campaign to a ballot initiative when we were getting ready for it in January to tax the 1% in Michigan for public education. And we were going to launch in February. We hosted this cool brunch for billions at Focus Hope, and then the pandemic hit. And so and you can only run a ballot initiative on a year where there's a statewide seat up for election. So this was our next chance, and we took it. And so we are running a ballot initiative to tax the 1% in Michigan, individuals who make $500,000, couples that make $1 million. Any dollar they make over those thresholds, a new 5% tax for public education in the state, for career and tech, lowering class size, and attracting and retaining teachers, which happen to be the most important issues across the state in Detroit, all the way up to the UP. And if we get it on the ballot and win, it's an extra 1.5-ish, $6 billion into public education in the state. But it's really hard.
Give us a
It's
status.
really
Give
hard.
us a status check. How's it going right now? I mean, where
Yeah.
are you? Yeah.
So we're sort of at a choice point. We have somewhere around 100,000 signatures, and we are aiming we need 446,000 to be on the ballot. So over the next few weeks and months, we're going to have to work really hard to get it on the ballot and activate as many people as possible. But, you know, me and my gut, and I know Donna feels this, that like this is the moment that in a time where there are so many forces trying to tell us no, not on the ground, forces above that like, oh, you know, no, not
The
like,
crazy thing was, in Lansing, when we went before the
Oh, yeah.
canvassing board. Was that what's the
The
name?
Board of Canvassers.
Board of Canvassers.
oh my God.
And there were among those board members. This was after they approved it.
Yeah.
Then they said, "Oh no, we need to change some language." And you came back and gave them some new language, and they refused to approve that. So then you got to
Yeah.
use the old language, right?
Yeah.
Which really made them mad. But in that meeting, there were so many things said that were ridiculous. One was an intentional misstatement on the goals and structure of this initiative.
Yeah.
There were things that they were saying about what percentage people were going to charge, and there were other who's impacted. And I think the third one was, what does this language mean? Can you talk about some of those arguments that you've had to push back against? coming from people in
Coming
power.
from the Detroit Chamber,
Yes.
and the Michigan Chamber.
Yes.
I mean, this is business, right? This is not who's at the heart of this. I mean, it was wild. So the for the listeners, there's the Board of Canvassers, which are 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Their initial role is to create neutral language for the voter, right? Like that's what it is.
Yep.
And they were lobbied. The 2 Republicans were lobbied so hard by the first time we went through, they gave it a thumbs up. And then they brought us back after the one person from Grand Rapids was lobbied by the Michigan Chamber and Americans for Prosperity and the Heritage Foundation directly in the room.
Tell folks, because folks may not make the connection, why they should know who the Heritage Foundation is.
The Heritage Foundation wrote Project 2025.
There you go. So everybody has heard about Project 2025, but I don't think everyone knows that it's the Heritage Foundation.
And one of the
behind
key
it.
partners of the Heritage Foundation are Dick and Betsy DeVos,
Yeah.
who, you can look at videos from early 2000 or early 1990s, them talking about privatization of schools. Yeah, so I mean, they fought us at the beginning, and I think this talk about like a radicalization or realization is how much when you are going for people's profits, for the public good, they will fight. I mean, these are, all of the chambers, all of the big corporations, they're going to fight this because it's the 1%. It's the folks who are making the profits, people over 500,000, people who are making $1 million. I mean, so their arguments are things like, this is going to kill small business. Because some small businesses are a pass-through. They filed their taxes as a pass-through. That's only 4% of small businesses. And you know what the wildest thing is? There is not a definition of small business. I think the average small business actually in Michigan, or like business in Michigan, makes less than $50,000. I can't remember the total stat. Don't quote me on that. But that's one of their biggest things. It's going to kill small business. And I'm sure once we get it on the ballot, this is what you're going to hear over and over again. It's what they said in Massachusetts. It's what they said in other places.
But it's also the same
after
argument
deductions.
they made with
For paid leave?
Yeah, for paid leave. So did
it's
that
wild.
legislation define small business by number of employees? It never did? Okay.
I don't think it did.
Go ahead.
So that's one. I mean, the other thing is that they say it's not restricted. And it is. The intent of what we wrote with our attorneys is that this money is constitutionally restricted for 3 things. It'll be allocated by the legislature, but it has to go to career and technical education, attracting and retaining teachers, and, oh my gosh, what my brain? Donna.
I don't remember something. It's all classroom.
Lowering class size. I say it's all day long.
Yes.
Those 3 things it has to go to. And that was the other push, that they were like, oh, it's a blank check. Because we know that they've polled. I'm sure they've polled. And when you say it's a blank check, people don't like it that much. And so they're afraid of it because they know that if it gets on the ballot, people are going to like it.
Well, you've gotten some support from some key people, though, some key institutions. Can you talk about that?
State Board of Education, some like our big Congress people, the Detroit School Board, the Grand Rapids School Board, the Ann Arbor School Board. I mean, we have folks across the entire state, from up north to downstate that are experts in education that are coming out for this.
Yeah, I think that one of the challenges is when they say that businesses, and it's only businesses that get charged this according to them, that businesses are going to have the highest tax rate in the nation. But you have research that shows that people in this income band pay a lower effective tax rate than you and I do.
Yeah.
Right. Assuming you don't make
$500,000.
Assuming that, then they actually have a lower effective rate.
$500,000.
And the other thing I think is really interesting about this is that businesses can write off losses, and so a lot of times, if they're saying it's businesses. Now, I did my own web research, and who knows if it's any good because I don't have enough time to really put into this. But it seems as though you have more people from capital earning incomes like this from capital gains taxes than from small business ownership. That's have correct. More people who are professionals than small business owners. And so this idea that only this group of people is being impacted is false. I think it's terrible. And I think everybody says we need to spend more on schools. Nobody wants to do the spending. Nobody wants to have to pay for it. So,
What's so funny to me too, when like the chambers come out against this, is one, for years they've been talking about how much they were part of all of these studies of how much we need to invest in schools, especially after Amazon turned Michigan down. Remember this?
I mean, I
Amazon turned us down
moderated
for-
a panel at the policy conference on education outcomes, and
I mean, Brian Calley, who is our small business, he hates us. You know what Brian Calley just was on a report about? How much we need more money and investment in special education.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, where's it going to come from?
Former lieutenant governor.
Where's it going to come from?
Head
you know
of the Michigan Small Business Administration.
You know, they
Magic
look
money?
at things like there was a time when there were all of these people really angry with teachers being overpaid. Teacher compensation. They only work 10 months a year and they get paid like they make 12 months. I wish I made that much. There's a lot of very intentional attacks on teachers and school professionals, on public school systems, because again, you know, they'll come with an efficiency argument that says, well, if we just gave vouchers, we could all send our kids to country day and cut out a lot of the bureaucratic fat or pork. There's a lack of knowledge and integrity in all of these conversations, not understanding that when you run a school district like Detroit, you have debt on buildings that are now closed because, you know, that debt doesn't go away just because you close the school building. You
And
have
holding costs.
and holding costs, and you have, you know,
Not to mention there's no state aid for operation, for capital,
well,
for buildings at all.
for
For capital improvement,
And
yeah.
keep in mind that there was a time before the state raided our school aid funds, before the state did what it did and corrupted our education financing system in 1999 with the passage of the law that was the first school board takeover. There was a time when, oh my goodness, now I forget where I was going with this. So anyway, senior moment here.
It's okay.
It's okay, we're
Molly,
here.
tell us how folks, because we are way over time.
Oh,
Tell us
goodness.
how folks can get
You're
involved.
you're not getting out of here early. So
You're
go
going to
on.
get here early?
No,
Where
we're
you
just
going?
over time. What's our run time, Jalen? We're
He's telling us to
yeah,
wrap
like
this up.
we're at an hour.
Okay, so how they can get involved?
Yeah.
One, we need people to help us get signatures.
Yeah.
So you can come and go to invest in my kids, mikids.org, sign up to be a signature gatherer. Two, we are having a massive week of action, 2 weeks of action called Red for Ed, Love Beats Greed, weeks of action starting on February 14th. Get it?
Love Day.
Beats Greed.
Yeah.
To February 28th, where we're asking folks across the state to sign up and take shifts. We're trying to get 300,000 signatures in those 2 weeks.
I know what I was going to say. I just
Go
want to
ahead,
say
say
this. Okay.
You can't
There was
cut
a
her off on
time
your last
when-
show.
I wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was just
I was
pointing out.
moving us along.
He was just helping me through my senior moment. But I was going to talk about, you know, how schools are funded.
Yeah.
Schools are funded through local millages and state millages, and the state uses sales tax and some and lottery and other sources combined to create the school aid fund. Okay, Detroit's millages used to support Detroit public schools, but Detroit public schools do not educate students anymore. Students are in Detroit Public Schools Community District. The state, our millages, our tax dollars in Detroit are being used to pay off the debt.
The debt.
That's right.
That
That the
DPS,
state
the original
created,
DPS has.
that the state burdened Detroit Public Schools with based on terrible decision making that we don't have time to address, right? And so this is a burden that was imposed on us. They weren't doing us a favor. And it would have been just better to just, pay it off all at once. But instead you have these two school districts. Detroit is now being compensated per pupil at the same rate as a charter school. No millages in there. Now, that does two things. It imposes a disproportionate drain on the state school aid fund because none of the money educating our students is being supplemented by our property tax dollars. But that's their error. And the other thing is it limits access to education dollars. And so
VD got that right. He got that piece right.
yeah.
That
And-
piece of advocacy correct.
And so we really need to help people understand school financing. Sometimes I find myself trying to explain school financing to people. Some people believe that the
Because it's not
lottery
a thought. Yeah.
Well, it's overly complicated because
and it's really
of all
convoluted
these pieces.
and complicated.
And the
they
national
do it on
narrative
purpose.
is that
Yes.
schools are wasting dollars.
Yeah.
But if you look at how much Michigan is spending on school dollars and you compare that to Massachusetts, we're not that far off. The problem is those dollars, so many of those dollars are not going into the classroom in Michigan in comparison to Massachusetts. So I think
I will say, though, in Michigan, though, if you look at inflation, we are, because of the lack of investment from the state, we're at about 2006 levels of
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But if you add in all of the money they're using to prop up the pensions,
Yeah.
then it looks like a lot greater,
yeah.
okay? Because it's so expensive to pay for the pension dollars. And all of that was made necessary by their heirs because they wanted to get rid of pensions. And instead, what they did was they destabilized the pension the state now has to prop up. So as we look at having these arguments, I find myself wanting to always help people understand school finance. A lot of times the argument that's being thrown at people is, well, the lottery doesn't go to schools. Lottery does go to schools.
Only 6%.
But let's keep in mind that when you say only 6%, it's only 6% of the budget. Yes. We could not educate students on the lottery alone. I think it's important that we keep all of these factors in mind. We need more money. And last year, 2026, last year, we couldn't even pass a state budget because the question was, do we fix the roads or pay for schools? Fix the roads or pay for the schools. This legislation will make it easy to do both.
That's right.
And I got a feeling that if it makes it to the ballot, the numbers of folks that come out for it would be staggering.
It's a bipartisan issue.
Yeah. And, especially out of Detroit, you ask Detroiters to get more money for kids, museums, whatever, Detroiters are going to say, absolutely yes. Molly, thank you so much for coming on
your
for the
last
first
show.
time on my last show. That means that you are immortalized in my brain and memory of this podcast. Listen, if you have topics or guests that you want on Authentically Detroit,
I made
go
a
ahead.
mistake.
Go
I
ahead,
made
D.
a mistake.
Go ahead,
And this
Donna.
is a big one.
What did you say?
What did you say?
482Forward won the Partner Award.
What'd you
Orlando
say?
P. Bailey won the Truth to Power Award.
Is that what you said?
I
don't
did.
even remember you saying that. You tried to steal
I
my
gave your
award.
away. Well, you know what? When I realized you were leaving, I just gave it to somebody else. You know what? Actions have consequences, Orlando.
There you go. You got your Truth to Power Award stripped on the
Oh,
list.
I think Maggie DeSantis
out.
would have something to say about
She
that.
would.
Sorry, Maggie.
Authentically Detroit. You can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout outs. Let's start with you, Molly. You got anybody you want to shout out, folks?
Oh my goodness.
Colleagues, friends.
All of my colleagues, they're amazing.
Yeah, y'all.
All the folks that invest
y'all
in
are
my kids.
Fun group.
We are fun.
I
really
love walking by, and I try to like stay focused because I could
I know,
sit
you're
in
so
there with
focused.
y'all forever
We chat.
until Dawn Wilson Clark is in that office and she's like, "Hey!" And then
It's like a whole slice of
it's
Detroit.
A whole slice of
You got our
Detroit in
Lisa,
there. I love
Dawn.
it. Yeah.
You got Juanita. You got a lot of folks.
Yes, everybody. Donna, you have any shout outs?
I just want to shout out Detroit's leaders. I have optimism about the future of our city for the first time in so long. It's hard for me to remember. Maybe I'm more optimistic now than I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
And, that means a lot to me. Not because I'm going to agree with everything that elected officials do. Politicians have a job. But because I believe that our values are aligned and that we'll get so much more than what we've had over the past how many years. Keep in mind, my first vote was in 1981, and that was a long time ago. And we haven't had, we had Coleman Young, and he was running against himself.
It's so crazy because you mean to tell me 1981 wasn't 15, 20 years ago? Like in my brain, you know what I'm saying?
It's old.
Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
it's
Also,
so-
shout out you, Donna. You're on the transition committee.
Well, yeah.
a lot.
And as are you.
I'm on a subcommittee.
Molly,
subcommittee.
you're
on a committee.
Y'all doing
Well, I mean,
this stuff.
I love the work. And
Y'all
I
doing-
think that this is, think about the fact that there are something like 48 people who are co-chairing these committees.
It's amazing.
400
massive
people who
effort.
sit on these committees.
It's massive.
We're going to be surveying thousands of people in Detroit and holding community meetings. This is a massive, we care what you think moment. And I think it's important to stop and say, this matters, and quit being cynical, because cynicism is good but can kill you. I never want to be an old cynical person who doesn't believe in things anymore. Sometimes I don't believe that we have political solutions to problems. And you guys have had to figure that out. But sometimes we have political partners. And so to have people that you believe in and believe in you, who will listen to you and show up where you are, means a lot to the city. And so I want to just thank our elected officials in general. There's great people running for office. We're seeing the rise of the Working Family Party. I'm really excited about that. And all of the people on the ground, including you, Molly, and Danielle Atkinson and Brandon Snyder and Scott Holliday, who are helping to make that happen every day.
Who are you shouting out?
Detroit. Shout out to Detroit. Shout out to y'all for loving us, listening to us, agreeing with us, disagreeing with us, challenging us. The foundation community for funding us. It is such an honor to be a storyteller in this city, but to hand over the mic every week to people like you, Molly, to people like all of the candidates we interview, all of the residents we've interviewed, all of the nonprofit leaders we interview, to hand over the mic and allow these people to tell their stories and to tell of their impact. It's been so great. So Detroit, shout out to you. And as always, we thank you so much for listening, and remember to love on your neighbor.